Jennifer from Flux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet this super cute Carrot Hugs bunny. This is a plushy, squishy bunny. It's made with super soft chenille yarn. We're going to learn how to make all the different parts of this bunny, and then we're going to put it all together. So this bunny has a kind of cylinder-shaped body. We're going to shape the head. We're going to add some ears, and our ears have pipe cleaners in them. So you can make them stand straight up like this, or you can make them sort of curl in or flop down. We're going to learn how to add some buttons for the eyes and a cute little embroidered nose. And the carrot of our bunny is completely removable. So if you give this to a child could play with the bunny and have the bunny hug its carrot as well. So our carrot is made in two parts with some curlicues, really simple stitches we'll be using for this pattern. We're going to add some legs and optional knees if your bunny wants to sit on a shelf. And we're going to learn how to put some weights in the bottom of our bunny so it will sit securely. And our bunny's arms are sewn together so it can always be hugging its carrot. And an optional bow if you'd like to do that as well. This makes such a cute gift for Easter. You can tuck it in a basket. You can give it to a child if a bunny is their favorite animal. You can make this in any color you like. I went for the bright orange, bright green, bright white, and then just some soft pink ears. So let's get started on our bunny. Now our bunny, when our bunny sits down, has a measurement from the bottom of surface of where the bunny sits to the top of the folded ear is about 10 inches. If we lay our bunny down and measure from the top of the ear down to the bottom of the foot is about 18 inches. And then our carrot, the carrot itself is about 6.5 inches. If we lay the carrot out with the greenery attached, it has a total height of about 11 inches. Each leg is about 7 inches. And then each arm, if we go back to the arm around, is about 5.5 inches. And then each one of these ears from the base, let me just hold that there, to the top of the ear, if we extend the ear out, is 5 inches. Our bunny has a circumference, if we measure around our bunny's belly, has a circumference of 12 inches around, okay? And our bunny's head, if we measure around our bunny's head, is about 10.5 inches around, okay? So we can just tuck the carrot. You can see how easy it is just to tuck the carrot back in there. And you could make your bunny hug other things too. You could make, put a piece of candy in there or some other prize or something like that. So let's get started. We're going to start by crocheting our bunny's body and then the arms and legs and ears, and then we're going to start shaping everything up and then finally finish with the carrot. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle. A tape measure is super helpful to measure the parts before we assemble. We're going to be using a 6.5 millimeter K crochet hook. This is my Furls Odyssey in the blue. I'll put the link down below if you'd like to get one for yourself. We are going to be using some buttons for our eyes. Now I have some really tiny little black buttons that I'm going to use for the pupil, and then to match the lining of the ear, I'm going to use some pink buttons, and then we're going to layer them. So it looks sort of like a pupil and a pink eye. You don't necessarily have to do this. You could just do some plain buttons, or if you know how to do a French knot, you could do that. You could do safety eyes. It's really up to you what you would like to do for the eyes. I'm going to just do some layered buttons. So let's talk about our yarn. I'm going to be using a yarn called Honey Bunny. This is from Hobie. This is the yarn that I used for my Candy Hearts tote bag. You may recognize this yarn from that. And we're going to be using some white. It's a very plushy chenille type yarn, very soft and squishy, so it would be perfect for our bunny. And it's called Honey Bunny, fittingly. But we're going to use white for the body and the head, arms and legs and ears. And then we're going to be using, this is just called white. This pink one here is called Candy Floss, and we're going to be using a little bit of that for the lining of the ears. So when you see the inside of the ears, they're lined in pink. And then we're going to be using the green. This green is called Shamrock, and we're going to use this for the top of our carrot. And then this bright orange is called Pumpkin, and we're going to be using that for the carrot itself. Okay, so you don't really need a whole lot of the colors, but each ball of this is 131 yards, and you won't need all of the yarn that I'm showing here, but if you wanted to kind of replicate the colors, then you'll need to grab something similar to this. Again, I'll put the link down below for both this hook and this honey bunny yarn if you'd like to get some for yourself for your project. Now, this is if you look at the yarn label, it's a number 6 super bulky yarn. Just look for the little tiny yarn ball picture with a number inside, and that is the weight. So any super bulky 6 yarn will work very well for this. And this plushy squishy yarn is perfect for like a little stuffed toy. Some optional things you may want for your bunny are some pipe cleaners, and I'm going to show you how to use these if you choose for the ears. If you want to make your ears bendable, now these are glittery. It really doesn't matter what they look like because they'll be completely hidden. They can be regular ones. I had glitter ones, so whatever kind. But you can put these in between. Our ears are going to be a layer of white and a layer of pink. And you can put these sandwiched in your ear layers and make your ears bendable if you want them to be floppy, or maybe have one up and one down. And then wire cutters are ideal for cutting pipe cleaners versus your scissors. If you use your scissors, you could put a little notch in the blade and they won't cut as nice. So wire cutters and pipe cleaners are completely optional. If you want your bunny to have, when we make the cylinder body part, if you want it to have some weight in the bottom, I grabbed some little stones from my garden. This was something I had. I love to use things I have on hand. You could use a handful of like plastic beads or anything really. It will go inside. You will never see it. It will be in there forever. So you want to use something that you won't miss. So something with some weight in it. I just grabbed a few stones. That's what I'm going to use. And that will allow your bunny, when you sit your bunny on a shelf or a table, it will stay put. It's going to have a flat bottom. So just a couple of stones or anything else heavy. If you have any ideas, definitely put them in the comments below to help people look for things around their homes if you're using something different than I am. But I have tons of these in the garden. I grabbed a couple of them, and that will keep our bunny weighed down and sit on the shelf. Okay, because we're using white yarn, I switched to a dark background so that we can have some contrast. So we're going to do this in parts. The first part we're going to do is the head and the body. This is very easy to crochet. We're going to do kind of a flat base so your bunny can sit down. And then we're going to work upward and sort of make a cylinder, and then we're going to decrease it a little bit at the top. We're later going to cinch the neck. So it's going to look just like a cylinder to begin, and then we'll cinch the neck to give it some head and body definition. Okay? So let's begin with the bottom. That's going to be kind of just a circle, and we're going to work upward, okay? So to begin, we're going to put a slip knot on our hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up the loop, and tighten. Then we're going to chain 4, and I'm just going to zoom in a tiny bit more so you can see what I'm doing here. And we're going to be creating a ring that we will be working our stitches into. So we want to chain 4. So to make a chain, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we're going to go into the chain farthest from the hook and join with a slip stitch. So insert the hook into that chain farthest from the hook, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on the hook. And now we have the ring that we'll be working our stitches into. As a side note, if you prefer the magic ring technique versus this technique, feel free to do that instead. It's totally fine. We're also going to hold this tail along the edges we work to weave it in as we go along. Okay? So for round 1, what we're going to do is chain 2, and then we're going to work 11 half double crochets into the center of the ring. So to make a half double crochet, wrap the yarn around the hook, insert it into the center of the ring, and bring up a loop. Wrap yarn around the hook, bring it through all 3 loops. Okay, we did 1, but we want to do a total of 11. That chain 2 we did at the beginning of the round, that counted as one of our half double crochets. So when we're finished, it'll be 12 spokes on our wheel. Okay, so that's 1, and then we're going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Also, if you're running out of space, push those stitches over to give yourself more room. 8, 9, 10, and 11. Still holding that tail along the edge. Okay, now that chain 2 that you did at the beginning of the round, we're going to join to close with the slip stitch. Insert the hook in that second chain up, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And round 1 is complete. Now this time you can flip your work over, pull that tail nice and snug, not too tight, we don't want to break the yarn, but pull it nice and snug, and you can just give that a snip right then and there just to get it out of your way. I like to kind of just get it out of the way so I can see. Okay, so round 1 is complete. Let's begin round 2. For round 2, we're going to chain 2 once again, and then as you can see, this is fluffy. It looks like a little tiny cloud. So we might have to feel around as we work into our stitches, okay? It's a little less defined because of the fluffiness. But as a positive, it's very forgiving. It's a very forgiving yarn. It's just very squishy. Okay, so in that first stitch here that you come to, we're going to work a half double crochet into that first stitch, okay? Now feel around. You can see right here. We're going to work 2 half double crochets into the next stitch, and we're just going to do this all the way around our circle. So work 2 half double crochets into the next stitch, 2 half double crochets into the next stitch, and so forth, all the way around our circle. You can sort of see, it almost looks scalloped. You can sort of see where those stitches are by kind of following those very slight little bumps all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and work 2 half double crochets in each stitch all the way around, and when we rejoin, we'll move on to the next round. Just coming up to the end of the round, and then when we're finished, we're going to join with a slip stitch to close the round. Go 2 chains up in that chain 2 that you did at the beginning of the round, insert your hook, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. So round 2 is complete. So we're starting to get some, this will be the bottom, so we're going to go a little bit wider on it, okay? So for round 3, what we're going to do is chain 2 once again, and this time we're going to work a stitch, a half double crochet in that first stitch, and then in the next stitch we're going to work 1 half double crochet, and the next stitch we're going to work 2 half double crochet, and we're going to just do this all the way around, okay? So 2 half double crochet in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 half double crochet into the next stitch, okay? And you're just going to repeat this sequence all the way around, okay? So do 2, then 1, 2, then 1, all the way around. Okay, so 2 half double in that stitch, 1 half double crochet into the next stitch, and so forth, okay? So keep going around working that sequence, and we'll rejoin at the end of this round. Okay, coming up to the end of round 3, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch in that second chain up like we've been doing for the previous rounds. And our circle is complete. So this is going to be the size of the base of our bunny. So it'll actually sit like this because we're going to start working upward, okay? Okay, so to give our bunny a nice flat bottom to sit on and some nice straight sides so it's nice and sturdy, we're going to work a back post half double crochet in our next round, and that's going to give a nice little ridge around the bottom, and our bunny will sit nice and flat. So what we're going to do for this round, we're going to start working upward, is to chain 2. 1, 2. Now in each stitch we're going to work a back post double crochet, half double crochet, back post half double crochet. Okay, so how you do that if you're not familiar with that stitch is you're going to wrap the yarn around the hook. Now this chain is part of this stitch, so you're going to go to the next post, that next post you see on the round, and you're going to take your hook. We did yarn around hook. You're going to take your hook and you're going to go from the back in between it and go over top of it and back down. Wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it back through the way you came. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through all 3 loops. And as you can see, we now have this nice little ridge that will give us a sturdy foundation for our bunny to sit on. Let's do this a couple more times together. Wrap yarn around hook, go to that next post, go in from the back, go over top, back down. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it back through the way you came, bring up a loop, yarn around hook, bring it through all 3 loops. And we're just going to do this all the way around, okay? So you're just going to work a back post double crochet in each stitch all the way around our base, okay? And this will look really nice and sharp when our bunny goes to sit down, okay? So just work that back post double crochet in each stitch. Again, this yarn is very fluffy, so you may need to sort of open things up or feel around with your hands to find where that next stitch is. But it's, again, it's very forgiving. You can already see we have a nice sturdy side, okay? So keep going, work a back post double crochet in each stitch around. All right, just working our last back post double crochet of the round, and we're once again going to count 2 chains up, join to close with a slip stitch. So as you can see, we almost have, it's almost like a little bowl right now. It's a nice edge, and now our bunny will sit nice and like sturdy and flat. Okay, so for the rest of our bunny, until we get to the very top, we're going to work just some regular half double crochets around. So chain 2 to start the next round, and we're going to work a half double crochet into the first stitch and in each stitch around, okay? So just work a half double crochet in each stitch, okay? All the way around. So I'm going to work mine around, and then we get down to the end of this round, we'll rejoin, and then we'll just kind of work this round for a little bit to give our bunny some height. We need to create some height for the body and the head because it's going to be kind of all one piece. And so what we're going to do is later we'll cinch the head to create some definition, give our bunny a neck, okay? So just keep working a half double crochet in each stitch around, and we'll rejoin in just a minute. Okay, just coming up to the end of the round, and once again we're going to work a slip stitch into that second chain up, okay? So what we're going to do now is repeat this round over and over and over again until we build up the sides of our bunny, okay? So I'm going to keep working my round, and when we rejoin, I'm going to show you my height that I've gotten, and we're going to kind of round the head off a little bit, okay? So I'm going to keep repeating my rounds, and when we rejoin, I'll give you some counts for our rounds and some measurements that we got as well. Okay, I continued working round 5 over and over and over again. So rounds 5 through 15, I repeated round 5. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, okay? So I'm just working that last stitch, and then we're going to join to close the round. Okay, now we're going to do a little bit of shaping to round the top of the head a little bit, because later we're going to cinch the neck and we want to have a little bit of a rounded head shape, okay? So what we want to do is we're going to do a little bit of decreasing next. Okay, so for round 16, we're going to start shaping up the top head of our bunny a little bit, okay? So what we want to do is chain 2, and then we're going to work a half double crochet 2 together around, okay? So what we're going to do is, if you've never done this stitch, it's super easy. We're going to work it over 2 stitches. We're going to turn 2 stitches into 1 stitch, okay? So wrap the yarn around the hook, insert it into that first stitch, and bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on the hook. And actually, let me zoom in so you can see a little bit better. Okay, wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the next stitch, and bring up a loop. You'll now have 5 loops on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through all 5 loops, and we've just decreased by 1 stitch, okay? And we're going to do this all the way around. So let's do a few more together. Yarn around hook, insert it into the next stitch, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook. Yarn around hook, insert it into the next stitch, bring up a loop, 5 loops are on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through all 5 loops, okay? So we're just going to do this in each over 2 stitches all the way around, okay? So half double crochet 2 together into that first stitch, into that next stitch, and so forth, okay? Okay, just keep continuing around, working those half double crochet 2 together stitches all the way around. And we're going to start seeing some really nice shaping happening. Okay, I have just 2 stitches left. So we're just going to continue around working a half double crochet 2 together. Okay, now we're at the beginning, and what we're going to do is join to close in that second chain up. Same thing we've been doing for all of this stuff in the round, and close the round. Okay, so as you can see, it's tapering inward a bit. You can see it kind of curving in. Okay, let's do one more round of our shaping. And then if you have any tails too, just tuck them right on in, because that's going to get stuffed and nobody will ever see it. Okay, so for round 17 of our bunny's body and head combo, we're going to do the same thing. Chain 2. Okay, so we're going to work a half double crochet 2 together around once again. Okay, same thing we've been doing. So wrap the yarn around the hook, insert it into that first stitch, bring up a loop. 3 loops are on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the next stitch and bring up a loop. 5 loops are on the hook, okay? And we're just going to do this all the way around. Okay, so keep working your decreases all the way around until you get back to where we started. It should be much shorter for this round because we've been decreasing for the last round as well. So just keep going and we'll rejoin at the end of this round. All right, coming up to the end here, our last 2 stitches that we will be working. And then we're going to join in that second chain up with a slip stitch. Same thing we've been doing for our bunny all along. Might need to wiggle it in there a little bit. And then we can cut our yarn. Let me just grab my scissors here. We can cut our yarn and fasten off. Now, you want to leave as you can see here, we have an opening. That's what we want because we're going to stuff it. But we're going to cut and leave a tail because we will kind of sew it up and cinch it shut later, okay? So go back in with your hook, wrap the yarn around the hook and pull through it to fasten off. And what we're going to do eventually is stuff the bunny, the bottom, cinch the head, stuff the rest, and then be ready to go with that, okay? So the next part of our bunny is the legs. Now, because our bunny is going to sit, it's really cute. I gave the bunny nice long legs. So if you sit your bunny on a table or a shelf, the legs can sort of dangle down. So what we're going to do, now you can customize this. If you want your bunny to have shorter legs, totally fine too. This is the part where you can customize that. But I'm going to give the bunny long dangly legs. So what we want to do is put a slip knot once again on our hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop. Reach in with your hook. Bring up a loop and tighten. Okay, so now what we're going to do is chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is very similar to the way we started the body. We're going to join with a slip stitch in the farthest chain from the hook, same way we did the body of the bunny. And now we have a ring. Again, if you want to do the magic ring, feel free to do that instead. And we're going to also hold this along the edge and weave it in as we go along. Again, chain 2. And then we're going to work 11 half double crochets into the center of the ring. So 1. And again, that chain 2 counts as one of our half double crochets, okay? So that was 1. And then we're going to go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can push your stitches out of the way if you need to. 8, 9, 10, and 11. Okay, so this is almost exactly the same way we've started the body of our bunny. Okay, now count 2 chains up, join with a slip stitch to close the round. And then let's also pull this was the end that we wove in as we went along, pull that nice and snug and give it a little snip. Okay, so this will kind of be the bottom of our bunny's leg. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to chain 2 1, 2. This time we're just going to work 1 half double crochet in each stitch, okay? So work a half double crochet into that first stitch, half double crochet into the next stitch. Again, this is very fluffy. You may need to feel with your hands along the edges, you know, for the to locate the stitch. And my yarn is kind of creeping over. Let me just scoot it out of the way. Okay, half double crochet in the next stitch and so forth. So what's going to happen, because we're only putting 1 stitch in each of these stitches, we're not increasing at all like we did for the bunny. It's going to start to fold upward and to create sort of a leg shape. And the more rounds you put on here, the longer your leg will be. Okay, so let's just do, this is a pretty quick round, so let's just do this whole one together. 1 half double crochet in each stitch, okay? And then we're going to join in that second chain up, same thing we've been doing all along, with a slip stitch to close the round, okay? So now we sort of have a bottom little fluffy leg here, okay? So we're just going to repeat this round to make the entire leg, okay? So go ahead and chain 2, 1, 2, and then do the same thing. Work a half double crochet into that first stitch. Again, you may need to feel around because it's very fluffy. And half double crochet into the next stitch, feeling with your hands if needed. And we'll just keep repeating this round until our leg has quite a bit of length on it. So keep repeating this round and get some length on that leg. Again, you can have short legs if you want your little bunny's legs to just kind of stick straight out, or if you want them to kind of hang down the front of a table or a shelf, you can do that as well, okay? Okay, just working that last stitch of our leg. And once again, we're going to join in that second chain up with the slip stitch to close the round. Now, I had just a little bit of yarn here, and I'm going to leave a long tail to sew it on later. So we're going to wrap the yarn around the hook and just pull it through, okay? You might need to cut your yarn if you have some to cut. All right, so let's talk about our leg here. We did round 1, and then we did round 2, and we repeated round 2 over and over and over again until we have a leg. So I repeated round 2 for a total of 12 rounds. So if you look at our leg here, we have round 1, round 2, and then we did 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, okay? Now, this part is customizable. I want my bunny to, here's the body, I want my bunny to sit on a shelf and have its little legs hanging down. You can make your legs shorter if you want, but if you want to replicate the look I'm after, and I went ahead and made the second leg as well. Now we can zoom out just so you can see all this a little bit better. I wanted my bunny's little legs to kind of bend around and hang down. So it's totally up to you, but you can make the legs shorter. You can make cute short legs kind of sticking straight out like this, like little bunny feet. But I wanted mine to hang down. So this part is customizable, but again, we have a total of 12 rounds here for the legs. So as you crochet each part, we have arms and legs and ears and all kinds of things. You can just kind of put them off to the side and have it ready for assembly. Okay, our arms are made almost exactly the same as the legs, but the arms we're going to sew to the sides, bring them in and stitch them in the middle. So obviously they're going to be a lot shorter. We're going to create kind of a loop with the arms so we can tuck our carrot in there later, okay? So we're going to start the arms the same exact way, but they're just going to be a lot shorter than the legs are, okay? So let's start off our arms the same way. Just a quick review. Put a slip knot on your hook, wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop and tighten. Then we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is the same exact way we did the legs. Join in the farthest chain from the hook with a slip stitch, and we have our ring. Again, magic ring is fine. Hold this tail along the edge, chain 2. Again, work 11 half double crochets into the center of the ring. So 1, 2, 3, 4, Let me get a little bit more yarn here. So that was 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 5, 6, 7, still holding our tail, pushing those aside if needed, 8, 9, 10, and 11, okay? Join in that second chain up with a slip stitch. Again, this is just like the leg, so I'm just kind of zipping through this a little quicker this time. Okay, you can pull that tail in the center if you want and snip it. And then what we're going to do is chain 2, and we're going to do the same thing we did before. Just work a half double crochet in each stitch around. Again, as you can see, I'm sort of feeling around for the stitches because it's super fluffy yarn. So working a half double crochet into that first stitch and in every stitch around, okay? And again, these are going to be a lot shorter because they're just going to be big enough to wrap around the bunny's body, almost like a hug, because it's going to be hugging, the little bunny's going to be hugging his carrot. So we're just going to make them big enough to fit around the bunny's body with a little bit of space, you know, to tuck the carrot into. We don't want it to be too tight that, you know, the carrot won't fit. But these are going to be much shorter, okay? So we're just going to work half double crochets all the way around. And we're going to just do this one together because it's a short round. Okay, we have another stitch to do. And now we're at the end of the round and we can work a slip stitch in that second chain up the way we did before. Okay, just like that. Okay, so now for the arms, we're going to repeat the arms. And we're going to grab the next step. I'm going to keep working some rounds, but we're going to need the body for this because we want to kind of hold it up and make sure it's wrapping around. So I'm going to keep working my rounds and add a little bit of length onto this arm, and then we're going to kind of hold it up to our bunny and get some measurements next. Coming up to the end of the arm here with our last half double crochet. And then we're going to join with a slip stitch to close the round. Now, I have made a second arm too. So we're going to look at this and talk about how many rounds I made. Let's fasten off. And if you can, leave a long tail because we'll use some of these tails to sew this stuff on later. All right, so I made 2 arms. And just as a refresher, we did... we repeated round 2. So we did round 1 down here, and then we did round 2. Now I did rounds 2 through 7 to create the arm. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I repeated round 2 until we got for a total of 7 rounds. Okay, now if we go back to our body over here, if we sew the arms on the sides, that it was just enough to come to the middle because I'm going to eventually stitch this as well, and then we'll tuck our carrot in. So if we look at it from the top view, it gave us a little bit of an opening here to slip the carrot in, okay? Now, if you want your arms to be longer or you want them to hang down with no carrot, you can make them longer if you want to. But we repeated round 2 until we had a total of 7 rounds, okay? So we can take some of these parts that we're finishing and sort of put them aside now. Okay, our ears have 2 parts. We're going to be making one white piece, and then we're going to grab our pink yarn and make an inner lining of our ear, if you will. So let's start with the outer part first. What we're going to do is we're going to put a slip knot on our hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in, bring up that loop, okay? We're going to do a chain 16 to begin. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Then what we're going to do, this is going to be worked in rows, just as a side note. We've done everything in rounds so far. We're going to work in the 3rd chain from the hook. This loop here does not count. We're going to go 1, 2, 3. In that third chain from the hook, we're going to work a half double crochet. So let me, my loop got a little loose there. All right, so in that third chain from the hook, work a half double crochet, just like that. And we're going to work a half double crochet, whoops, in each chain across, okay? So half double crochet all the way across. All right, just working a half double crochet in that very last chain here. And then we have the beginnings of our ear. We need to make it a smidge wider though, okay? So chain 2 and turn, and then you're just going to work a half double crochet into that first stitch and each stitch across, okay? So go ahead and work your half double crochets across, and our ear will get just a little bit more width on it. Okay, so for this row, we're going to work our last half double crochet, and then when we get to that turning chain, remember we did a chain 2 and turned our work? When we get to that turning chain, we're going to work a slip stitch into this. This is going to be the rounded part of the bunny ear, and if we were to just do a half double crochet, it would look a little more boxy. So go in this turning chain, that second chain, that topmost chain, and insert the hook, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and you can see it just gives it a little bit more of a rounded look, okay? So the ear is complete. So what we're going to do now is cut the yarn and go ahead and fasten off. And sometimes this chenille type yarn gets little crumbs. It's okay, totally normal. All right, so we're going to put this ear aside because we're going to grab our pink yarn now, and we're just going to create the lining. So when our bunny is sitting and he has his little floppy ears, you'll see just a little flash of pink in there, and it'll look really cute. And also, if you remember in the beginning of the video, we have some pink buttons that we're going to be adding to the backs of the black buttons, so it'll kind of pick up that pink a little bit, and the little nose as well. Okay, so for this one, what we're going to do for this one is we're going to put, once again, put a slip stitch on our hook, same way we've been doing. And this time we're going to do a chain 14, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And if you bring it up to your bunny ear, you can see it's just going to fit inside, okay? Now, once again, we're going to go in that third chain from the hook and work a half double crochet. This is going to seem pretty familiar. It's just a little bit shorter of a starting chain, okay? Then we're going to work a half double crochet in each chain across, okay? So go ahead and do that now. And this is only going to be this row that we'll do for our ear lining. We don't want it to be as wide as the other ear because it's kind of the inside of the ear, okay? So we're trying to give the illusion of the ear having an inside part. Okay, so just work your half double crochets all the way across in each chain. And now I will point out this will be the top this time, and it already has a naturally rounded look, so we're not going to have to worry about how we did it before for the other ear. That one had an extra row, so we had to kind of do a workaround to give it that rounded look. This one already has a naturally rounded look. Okay, just work that last half double crochet in that last chain. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut the yarn and fasten off. And we're going to hold this up. I want to show you how it looks. So if we lay this, you can kind of straighten this ear out. If we lay this here, and we lay this here, it just fits beautifully into that ear. Okay, so the big challenge with this ear is because we're going to see when it is, you want to leave these tails in place, but because we're going to see both the inside and the outside of the ear as it hangs, you don't want stitches to show on the back and you don't want stitches to show on the front. So the biggest challenge with that is what color do you use? Because if you stitch it in white, you'll be able to see it on the pink side. If you stitch it in pink, you'll be able to see it on the back side. So how we're going to kind of get around that is I took my white yarn, just a piece of white yarn, about 24 inches or so. And before we do that, we need to kind of sandwich our ears. So you want to line up the bottom. These are our bottom edges. We're going to leave these intact because we're going to use this to sew it onto the bunny later. So just leave those alone for now. But we're going to line up the bottom and we're going to kind of line it up here. Okay, it doesn't have to touch at this other end. We sort of want that white edge on this part. Okay, so the rounded part, we want it to look like this, like it's outlined in white. And then the bottom part, we sort of want to line up. It doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of the sewing and seaming will give it the nice neat look that we're after. So in order to not let your yarn show on either side, what we need to do is sew into the back loops of the pink section, okay? So keep everything nice and lined up as you work. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up from the back of our ear like this, just in the white part, bring it almost all the way through, okay? Now, fold your ear back a little bit and grab some of these back loops. You need to be very careful that they don't show on this side, okay? So see how my needle's showing? You can see a little bit of like the gold. We don't want that, okay? We want just these back loops to be sewn in. So you might need to play with it a little bit in order to get it just right, okay? And now we're going to go in to the pink and into the white. And you might need to pull a few of these out, but you have to be very careful that they don't show. Now see when I pull it tight, it sort of disappeared, okay? And we're going to carefully go all the way down. It's a little bit tedious, but we definitely want no white showing on this pink side, okay? And my tail is sort of getting in the way here. Okay, we're just going to pull it almost all the way through, and then you'll go back down into the white. Now the white will be very hidden. You don't really have to worry as much. But see, when you pull it tight, it's sort of, that stitch sort of disappears, okay? Now come up from the white, and then pull it through. Now grab one of these back loops, and there will be one once in a while that does not look pretty and you need to like redo it, okay? It's just, this is a little bit tedious part just to kind of get this tacked down, okay? But we definitely don't want it to show because this beautiful bunny, we put all this time into it when we crocheted it, and we want it to look nice and neat when we're done, okay? And so we're just going to go back down into the white part. We're just tacking this down the best we can, okay? And you can see it's just disappearing and it looks great, okay? So come up from the white, go in and just grab that back loop ever so slightly and go back down into the ear. Now as you're sewing too, be mindful of that everything's staying lined up, okay? So you want to just keep, every so often, just check it a little bit and make sure everything's lined up. Now come up from the white, and you're going to go just in that back loop there, okay? Just enough to tack it down. We don't need to over sew it, okay? Come up from the back and go back down. I'm kind of going, you can see there's like, it almost looks like a rope. I'm sort of going in between that, and that's working really well for me. You might need to play around with yours a little bit to see which actual back loops are working best for you, okay? So come in from the back with the white, through the white layer. Now go, I'm sort of going in between those two pieces of yarn, okay? And when you pull it tight, not too tight, we don't want it to be distorted, but when you pull it down snug, it sort of disappears like that, okay? Again, this is where having this fluffy yarn, you know, it being very forgiving is going to be helpful, okay? And then go back down. All right, I'm going to continue this around with my ear, and when we rejoin, we will have an ear ready to go. All right, we went around our whole ear, and I'm just going to tack down. Let's see where we're at here. We're getting to have a lot of strands here. I'm just going to go back down in that last little spot and tack down that last area, okay? All right, so our ear is seamed, and you might find that one works better as a left ear, one works better as a right ear, but it has that nice, that cute little like flop factor now. or you can have it straight up. It's up to you. It has enough stiffness to go either way. Okay, so you just want to repeat this, trim any tails, of course, but you just want to repeat this for your second ear. As an option, and I mentioned this earlier in the video, you can use a pipe cleaner. If you leave yourself a little pocket, when you're done, you can slide a pipe cleaner in between the layers that you sewed and use this to bend your ear. So it's really easy. I went all the way up with this, and then some wire cutters are ideal. If you try to cut with your scissors, it will put a little notch in the like the blade of your scissors. So if you have wire cutters, that's better. So you can just snip it flush, or actually a little shorter, and then your ear will be now bendable, and you can like flip the little top down and things. Totally optional, but if you want to make your ear a little bit bendable, you can do that as well. Okay, so before we get started on the carrot, we have all of our bunny body parts here. So we have the body and head kind of combination piece that we're gonna cleverly cinch and work on in a minute. We have 2 legs, and we have 2 arms, and we have 2 ears. Now I have that flipped over. So we have 2 little ears, okay? So what we're gonna do next is start putting all of this together. I'm gonna grab my fiber fill because we're gonna start stuffing some of this. Now the ears don't need to be stuffed, but the body and the arms and legs do. Now I mentioned this before, but we're gonna stuff the bottom body part of our bunny first, and then cinch it a little bit, and then kind of work the face and stuff the head, okay? Now, I want to do the body first before the arms and the legs, because especially the arms, I want to get the body's volume established first before we know where to attach the arms, because they have to come in just at the right point to be able to hold that carrot, okay? So let's stuff the body first. I have my fiber fill over here off to the side, and we have just enough of an opening and a tail. You want to leave that tail intact because we're going to use it to kind of cinch up the top later. But we're going to start to stuff our bunny's body. Now, the thing with fiber fill, I think I've mentioned this in other videos, but instead of doing one giant ball of fiber fill, we want to use small, like kind of break it up and put it in there in small bits. Just because if you put it in one giant ball, it's harder to kind of straighten it out later. So you want to just do it a little bit at a time, because if you do it in one big blob, it's not going to work out as well. Now, at this time, when you stuff the body, this is a great time to put the weights at the bottom as well. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm going to be using some stones, but you can use whatever you like. So you want to get like a sort of like a base layer in there and sort of make a nest. You can sort of dig in there with your fingers and kind of make a little nest for your stones, or whatever weights you want. You can use like metal washers from the hardware store. You could use some heavy beads, some wood beads or something, but you don't need a lot. I put 3 stones in here. I'm going to add a 4th one. I grabbed a bunch, like a big handful of them, but I don't think I need all that. And I'm just sort of making a nest down in the bottom here, and then we'll continue to add more fiber fill, sort of fill in the nest. You don't want them to roll out, but sort of like fill in your little nest, and then you can continue adding fiber fill. Now I'm working on a dark background. You can see all the little fibers going everywhere, but I wanted to stick with my dark background so you can see, so it's not white on white. Okay, and as you're doing it, you can see I'm sort of shaping it up, okay? We don't want to go all the way up to the head yet, because we're going to do the head part separately, okay? So, continue stuffing this, just like that, just kind of like working it around. It's almost like a real malleable, like dough. You can sort of shape it up like dough, okay? And make sure too, I already did this, but make sure too that any tails that you have when you were working, just stuff them into the middle. Nobody will ever see them, okay? And you want to make sure your cylinder is nice and straight and not lumpy. And I have my weights in there and I can feel it. It's like really anchored down. And remember that back post double crochet? That's really starting to look sharp now as it's stuffed and sitting on my table, okay? So if you need to like kind of squash it down a little bit too, to make room for the head, you can do that as well, okay? So once you've gotten most of the body stuffed, we're gonna cinch up the neck now, okay? So grab a piece of yarn. I'm gonna grab a piece over here. I saved, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet. And I'm gonna grab my needle. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start to shape up the neck. So you wanna sort of plan a little bit how you want the bunny's face to look, where you wanna cinch it. Do you want it to be more in the middle and he has a larger head? Do you want it to be sort of more up the top? You might want to grab your ears and sort of plan how the ears are going to look with your bunny's face, okay? So thread your tapestry needle, and I'm going to create a back of this. So find where you want the front and the back to be. This is my tail where I left off, so I'm going to kind of make that the back, okay? This will have a front and a back, obviously, because it's going to have a face. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows down. And I'm going to insert my needle and start to weave in and out, all the way around. Try to be neat as possible. And you can establish your bunny's neck wherever you want it to be, but use that row as a guideline so that your yarn that you're running through here is going to be nice and neat. You don't want to go a row down and then come 2 rows up. Just use that row as a guideline so that your bunny's neck will be nice and straight and the cinch will be nice and neat. Now later, I'm going to show you too where this cinched neck is. You can put a little piece of ribbon around the neck too, just to kind of neaten it up, make it a little bit more festive, you know, if you want to hide that cinched neck. But it'll look nice. Okay, so I'm back where I started, and I'm going to finish pulling my yarn through. Okay, I can take it off the needle at this point, and I have 2 ends. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yarn and tie it, and then we're just going to gently squeeze. Now, see how neat that looks? When you pull it tight like this, just be really careful that you're not breaking the yarn. It can break if you pull it too tight. Okay, so just tie it really nice and neat. Now the head is still empty, so it's not going to look the way it should yet. Obviously, it's going to look a little crinkly, as you can see. But we're going to tie that nice and neat. And at this point, if there's any fiber fill you want to stuff down in there a little bit more, you can still work it in there a little bit, okay? So if you need to stuff any more fiber fill down in that body, you know, it's a good time to do that. Again, we're going to keep this tail intact at the top. And now let's take care of these ends. So weave in, you know, thread your tapestry needle, and then we're just going to go that. Now again, this is the back. You can sort of see where we did our joins at each round. So we can kind of do the mechanical part back here. Okay. So I wove it in, and I'm coming back out on the other end, and then I'm going to thread my other tail, and I'm just going to do the same thing. Go in and then back out like that and pull it snug. Now take your scissors, give it a tug and a snip, and then it'll just sort of disappear. Give it a tug and a snip. You might get some yarn crumbs, but that's okay. Just pull them off. That chenille yarn is kind of notorious for that. Now we have a nice looking bunny body. You can sort of flatten up the bottom. We have a nice looking bunny bottom with a really great shape on it, okay? So now we can start to work on the bunny's little face and stuff the head next. Okay, so now that the body is worked, we're going to put a little nose and we're going to sew our button eyes onto our bunny. So we want to locate the front and the back first of our bunny before we start doing this. So where I did my joins, you can sort of see a little bit of a faint diagonal. I'm going to put that in the back. And so on our front here, we're going to do the nose first. I feel like the nose, doing that first helps to place the eyes a little bit better. So one of these half double crochets we will use as a guide, okay? So what you want to do is go into the top. Now remember, we're going to leave this tail intact because we're going to cinch it up in just a minute. But you're going to go down into the inside top here, and you're going to come in from the back to the front, and I just picked a random half double crochet sort of in the middle. And I'm going to come in from the side of it with my pink, go almost all the way through. I cut a piece of yarn about 12 to 24 inches. And then I'm going to cross over that stitch. I'm using the stitch as a guide. And then I'm going to do that one more time. Okay, so come back from the inside, go to the outside, and then go back down, just to kind of like double up and make it look a little thicker. Now, we're going to give the bunny's nose a little bit of a point at the bottom. So if you look at our half double crochet stitch, the bottom of it, if we look at this one, it's a little bit hidden over here. So let's look at this one beside it. You can see a little bit of a dent. We're going to go in that dent like that, come in from the back, and we're going to go back down over top of those two strands that we just made. Okay? And now we have a cute little bunny nose, okay? So then go in the inside where you did all your stitching and get everything straightened out, get everything nice and smooth, pull it snug if you need to. Make sure you don't pull it too snug though, and if you do, you can always take your needle and kind of like pull it back out, okay? See how I just pulled it out? You can kind of snug it back down if you need to, okay? So then take your two strands of pink and you're just going to tie a secure knot in the back. Again, remember, not too tight. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see better here. And then take your scissors and just give it a snip. And you can always use your needle, like I said. You can tuck those in the inside too. You don't really have to snip it if you don't want to. But you can always use your needle and come back in here and just sort of shape it up if you need to. If you need to kind of bring it out a little bit more, you can do that as well. Just kind of pull that nose out a little bit if you want to. Okay, so now we have a bunny nose. Okay, let's grab our buttons. Now, if you remember earlier in the video, I'm going to do 2 pink buttons behind and then 2 black buttons in the front, like pupils, and just sort of layer them, okay, just like that. And I grabbed just the tiniest scrap of embroidery floss and a tapestry needle. So a tapestry needle is, if you look at our yarn needle, you can see it's a little bit smaller because the eyes of our buttons are really tiny. Once you have your embroidery floss threaded onto your needle, then you want to sort of figure out where you want your little eyes to be, okay? I'm going to just sort of put them on either side of the nose, okay? So what we want to do is grab our first little stack of buttons and just place it where you want. Come in from the back again and put it through that first button. Now bring it through the next button. Whoops, it's so tiny. Just work slowly if you have to. And then hold them together and bring this embroidery floss almost all the way through. Kind of hold it with your finger if you need to anchor it. And then you're going to go back into both buttons and sort of tack it down, okay? And we're going to do this a couple times just because we want those eyes to be really secure on our bunny's face, okay? So just hold everything in place and then do a couple of passes. Come in from the back into both layers. It's a little tricky because it's 2 layers of buttons. And then you're going to go back down. Well, something got a little twisted. I'm not sure what happened here. There we go. You're going to go in. You can give it a tug if you need to. And then go back down to anchor it in place. Do that at least twice just to keep it anchored in place, okay? And we have our first button, okay? So then what we're going to do is we're going to tie this. Leave this on your needle on this floss because you have enough floss here to do your second eye. So we're just going to tie this really securely. Now, if you're giving this bunny to a small child, these buttons could be a choking hazard. So use discretion when doing that, and you may need to embroider some eyes. Embroidered eyes are safer for a young child. So just as a disclaimer, if you're giving this to a young child, you will want to embroider the eyes, okay? So we have one eye done. Now we're gonna, if you look and use the nose as a guide, there's a stitch above it, 1 stitch to the right, and then that 3rd stitch. So we're gonna go 1, 2, and 3 for this eye, okay? So I'm gonna come back from underneath pop this first button on, pop this second button on, and then very carefully, again, all these mechanics back here are going to be hidden. So just very carefully thread everything on. So what we're going to do is just secure that eyeball on and then go into the second loop of each button. And I'm really glad I layered these eyes because they look really cute. Okay, now go in, and then we're just going to do that one more time. Go into both buttons. This one's a little tricky because it's 2 layers, but just take your time and go back down just like that. Okay, now turn that inside out, and what you can do to finish is to just kind of take your needle and put it through some of that yarn and pull it almost all the way through till you have a loop. Same thing as when we do this with yarn, and just do that once or twice just to give it a nice knot. And you can just pull that needle out and stuff that in, okay? Okay, so now we're ready to put some stuffing in the head part. Now our head looks a little lumpy right now, but we're gonna get that all worked out. So go ahead in that opening, keeping that tail on the outside of your bunny. Go ahead and stuff its little head full of stuffing. We don't want to overstuff, but we don't want it to look deflated either. So remember, just small amounts at a time. Work slowly and little bits at a time, okay? Now, I just wanted to let you know, the neck here, if you want to, I did also grab a piece, and I have so many parts of this bunny laying here. Oh, here it is. So later on, I'm going to give you the option if you wanted to put a little bow around his neck too, okay? So grab the top again, take that tail that you had, and what we're going to do is we're going to go all around the top. Now this doesn't have to be absolutely beautiful and perfect because we are going to be putting some ears on here, okay? Now, just going to go all around the edge like this with our tail, making sure all that stuffing stays in the bunny. Okay, and then you're just going to give it a firm cinch. Now reach in, grab a loop, go almost all the way through till there's just a loop, and snug it in, okay? Now we're going to just take the tail, go through, pull it out in a random area, and snip, okay? So we can sort of shape up the head. Again, rolling around things like this in your hands, almost like dough, is really helpful. Okay. All right. Our bunny is coming together. Okay. Again, the next mechanics here, we can put a little bow around that too. Okay. Just if you like it, you know, leave it like that too. You could do a sheer ribbon too, if you like. Okay. So next, we're going to do some ears. We're going to add our ears next. So grab your tapestry needle again. And if you left the tails in place like I did, you're going to have a little bit less to do here with, you don't have to cut a separate piece rather. So if you have any tails in the top, go ahead and weave those in. So I'm just going to go flip my ear to the back and just quickly weave that in to the back part, okay? And our scissors. All right, now, also, again, as a side note, we put some bendable pipe cleaners in here too, so that your ears can be stand up straight or they can flop over. We're only going to need one of these tails to sew on. So if you have multiple tails like I do, just take your tail, thread it, send it in to the middle part here, and bring it out at a random spot like we've been doing. And then you can take your scissors, give it a snip, give it a tug, give it a snip, and then kind of smooth it out if you have any crumbs. And then, let's see, we have one tail left to deal with here. So just thread that last one because we're leaving this very last one to sew, okay? So we're just going to take that through and also give this one a snip, okay? All right, now, our ear. Now, the way I crocheted them, I sort of gave them a little bit of a sloping bend like this, okay? Because I want them to sort of sit like this, okay? So grab our, I have parts all over the place. Grab your tail that you'll be using to sew your bunny. Again, just fold it forward. Now take your tapestry needle and thread it. And then you're just going to grab some of the bunny's head loops and the ear loops. And we're just going to do a whip stitch all the way across this ear. But we're not going to stop there because we want this ear to be nice and sturdy. Again, if you're getting any crumbs from all this yarn snipping, just kind of move them aside. Okay, so I did a few stitches and now we're going to flip our ear back up. Now, not crazy about the way it's laying. It's a little floppy. If you have a floppy eared bunny like I do and don't want that, we do want the ear to flop, but not like this, I should say. You want to do a couple stitches in the front, okay? So just take your tail without taking it out and go ahead and kind of tack that down. Now we're using white on white yarn, so it's going to be very camouflaged. So we're just going to do a few stitches in the front just to kind of anchor the ear in place, front and back, okay? And then when you've done your last stitch, pull it almost all the way through like we've been doing, leaving a loop, and then send that tail through that loop, okay? And then we can just weave that end in and then repeat for the other ear, okay? So just send that tail in, bring it back in a random area somewhere else, and give it a snip, and that tail will be gone, okay? So now we have a very sturdy ear, and it can be bent. You can bend it this way or what have you, because we put that pipe cleaner in there. Okay, grab your other ear, weave in the ends, do whatever you need to prepare, and then sew that one in as well. Okay, our bunny now has ears. I love how they can curl. It just really makes the bunny look extra cute. Okay, now we need to add some arms and legs to our bunny. So let's do some legs first. Now we have these 2 legs that we made earlier, and what we're going to do once again is stuff them. Now if we sit our bunny on the table like so, and the bunny needs to bend his legs, if we stuff it, they're going to stick straight out and not look as natural. So when we stuff our bunny, we're going to stuff it halfway, put a stitch or 2 here for a knee, and then stuff it the rest of the way. That will give our bunny's leg a little bit of a bend, okay? So you don't need a lot of stuffing for this one because this yarn is so plushy. This leg is already a little bit kind of poofy. Okay, so I just put a little bit down in the bottom, and now I'm going to take a scrap piece. I just have a couple inches or 2 here, and I'm just going to do in and out, just a real quick stitch here like this, and then take the 2 pieces and kind of just tie them together. Let's do it in the back so that it's not as visible. Okay, so we're just tying it together like this. Now, I will say this chenille yarn is very forgiving. So if your yarn is not looking as forgiving as this yarn, you might want to do your stitches differently if you need to. And then what we can do, you could probably even do this with your hands. Just take this end and tuck it right on in there. That's the thing with stuffed things. It's so nice to deal with the ends. And now our bunny has sort of a little knee. So when it sits down, it can kind of drape it over the side. All right. So then stuff it the rest of the way with your fiber fill. No need to put a ton of it in there. And then what we're going to do is grab your tail of the leg that we left intact, and we're going to kind of sit our bunny up and see this flatness that it has on one end. We're going to take the bunny and we're going to flip the leg up like this, and we're going to kind of sew it around the edge here. Okay, so flip the leg upward and just kind of line it up so it's in the center. So when we sew this one, they'll be centered. Okay, so we're going to take this edge, and once again, we're just going to kind of whip stitch it into the bottom here. Okay, so just using that edge. Remember that back post half double crochet that we did? We're just going to kind of use that little ridge as a guide. Okay, and just do a really quick little back stitch, or whip stitch, excuse me. And then when you get to the end, just do that last stitch and don't pull the yarn all the way through. Leave yourself a little loop, and then you can just tie it off and send that tail down through the middle once again and give it a snip. Okay, so now we have a leg with a knee, and it can kind of like hang over the table. Okay, repeat for the other side, and then we'll move on to the arms. Okay, our bunny now has legs. So I just wanted to show you, if he sits on a yarn ball, the legs kind of drape down a little bit and looks really cute. Okay, the next part we need to do, this part, these items sort of rely on each other. So we have 2 arms that we're going to sew. We're going to attach them to the sides and bring them in and put a couple stitches in the middle. Because the next part we're going to do is our carrot. So our bunny needs to be able to hold our carrot. So what I would recommend is for you to probably put a stitch in the middle first and then attach the arms so that the arm's in the right place. Because you don't want to like put the arms too far out and then they can't meet in the middle. Okay, so let's do that first. We're going to attach the arms and then, or attach the hands rather in the middle, and then we'll attach the arms, and then we'll get to work on our carrot. Okay, so this is really easy. Just bring your bunny's little hands together. We're going to stitch this in the back just so you can't really see it. We're going to hold them together like a sandwich and just run a couple of stitches through here just like that. And I got to rethread my needle because it pulled out. Okay, so just do a couple, like 3 or so, just to kind of tack the little hands together so that the bunny can hold its carrot. Okay, and then all we can do with this tail is just send it into the inside of the hand. Okay, no need to worry about that tail. Okay, so now grab my needle because I forgot about this tail where we started. We're going to also send that tail in through the inside of this hand as well. Okay, so just send it through the middle. All right, now what we're going to do, I'm just going to pull that a little snug, flip them over, and they're just stitched together now. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is just put some stuffing. Any tails except for the one you'll use to seam, just stuff them right in there. So stuff that arm. You don't want to overstuff the arms and legs because they're already very fluffy, okay? Any tail like this one that's not part of that, you want to stuff that in there, okay? Now, get a little bit more in there, but we want to keep the ends. Remember how we did the legs? The legs were kind of flat and that made it easier to sew. We want to keep the ends of the arms flat as well for when we go to sew it, okay? So we're going to position, now that it's all one piece, I just think this makes it a little easier. If you find the other way easier by sewing the arms first and then the hands, you can do that too. So we're going to position our arms, and let's look at the top view. We want a little bit of a gap here because we're going to tuck the carrot down in there. So we need to sew the arms in just the right place. Okay, so you can turn your bunny on the side, grab that tail that you'll use that you left intact. Now, if you ever get rid of a tail and you don't mean to, you could always just tie one on, okay? So just position your bunny where you want the arms, get the ends nice and neat, and then we're just going to do some seaming. So we're just going to seam this arm right on here. Just try to do it as neatly as possible. And when you seam things, try not to pull too tight because we don't want our stitches to ever look distorted, okay? And we don't want to sew the tail in. There we go. Okay, so just get that last one in, leaving a loop, and pull it snug. Okay, we can just put that tail right through the body, come out anywhere randomly, give it a snip, okay? So we have one arm attached. Let's bring it around to the other side. Again, we're going to leave a little bit of a gap. It can be fluffy because this yarn and bunny are very fluffy. And then grab a tapestry needle once again, and we're going to sew the other side as well. Okay, the arms are on and it's ready to hug a carrot. So we're going to move on to the carrot part next. And then after the carrot, we're going to just put a little ribbon and slip the carrot in there and do any finish work that we need to do. To make our carrot, we're going to start with the orange yarn and make the bottom part first, and then in just a bit we'll move to the green yarn and do the topper. So what we want to do for the carrot, it's very similar to the arms and the legs. We're going to put a slip stitch on our hook to begin. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Then we're going to chain 4, so this will seem pretty familiar. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to join in the farthest chain with a slip stitch. And then we're also going to hold that tail along the edge as we work. So we're going to do chain 2 to begin. And then we're going to work 7 half double crochets into the center of the ring. So 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay? Then we'll join in that second chain up with a slip stitch to close the round. So very similar to how the other ones were done. We need to open that up a little bit because of the plushiness. For round 2, what we're going to do is chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to work a half double crochet into that first stitch. Then we're going to work 2 half double crochets into the next stitch. So 1, I need to wiggle it in there sometimes, and 2, and then you're just going to do that all the way around. So in the next stitch, once again, work 2 half double crochets, and then just do this all the way around. Okay, I worked my 2 half double crochets all the way around, and now I'm going to join in that second chain up with a slip stitch to close the round, okay? So we sort of created like a bottom shape of our carrot, and now we're going to work upward. So for the rest of your carrot, all you want to do, and you can pull this tail in, you don't really need to cut it because we're going to stuff it down in the carrot later. So what we want to do for the rest of our carrot is chain 2, this is for round 3, what we're going to do, and work just a half double crochet in each stitch around. And we're going to do that for the whole carrot. Okay, so we're just going to work a half double crochet in each stitch around for round 3. Coming up to the end of the round, and then we're just going to join with a slip stitch in that second chain up to close the round once again like we've been doing, okay? So to continue with your carrot, what we're going to do is repeat round 3 over and over and over again, and then we're going to rejoin in a minute. I'm going to share with you how many rounds and how long, because you don't want your carrot, our bunny is going to be holding the carrot, so you want to make it long enough so it's visible, but you don't want to make it so long that the bunny will have trouble holding the carrot. So let's keep working round 3, and we'll rejoin, and we'll do some measurements and counts of the rounds. Okay, just working that last half double crochet, and we're going to join with a slip stitch to finish. Now I have my bunny nearby, so when we're done with the carrot we can try it on for size. Okay, so what we want to do now is cut, leaving a tail, because we're going to use that to cinch up our carrot and do a little seaming later. And you're just going to wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. Okay, before we stuff it, I just want to kind of recap to show you how many rounds that I did. We did round 1, round 2, and then we did round 3, and we repeated round 3. So it went 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So rounds 3 through 11, we repeated round 3, okay, for all of those rounds to get our carrot shape, okay? So then what we're going to do is grab our fiber fill and just stuff the carrot. And again, little bits at a time. We don't want it to be overstuffed and look lumpy or distort our stitches, okay? And again, we're just going to shape up our carrot. That's probably a little bit too much, so let's just tuck a little bit back in here. Okay, so now we want to, you can kind of roll it like dough if you want to. We're going to take our needle, and what we want to do is we're just going to sew the top up and cinch it. So I'm using the existing tail that I have, and I'm just going to kind of go in and out with my needle. Nothing exacting, or, you know, we don't need to count every other stitch or anything like that, but just kind of go all the way around with your needle. And that's going to give it that kind of tapered carrot shape on the top, okay? And now pull it shut, just like that, okay? So it has a rounded top. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this tail and send it through the middle. And then just give it a snip. And we're going to crochet the green parts next. For our carrot topper, we're just going to make a couple of curlicues to kind of sew to the top. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Next, we're going to chain 16. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So this is going to be worked in rows, a little bit different. We've been doing a lot of things in the round so far. So what we're going to do in the third chain from the hook, this loop does not count. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work 3 half double crochets into that chain. So 1, 2, 3. Okay? Then in the next chain, we're going to do the same thing. 3 half double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And we're just going to do this all the way across in each chain. So go ahead and work 3 half double crochets in each chain, and then we will rejoin in just a minute. Okay, just working those last couple of half double crochets. Again, we worked 3 half double crochets in each chain across. So as you can see, we now have this really cool curlicue that will be the topper of our carrot. Okay, so to finish your curlicue, what you're going to do is grab your scissors and leave yourself a little tail, because we'll use that to sew it on later. Cut the yarn and then fasten off, okay? Now, we're going to make a second curlicue, but if we have them both the same length, it might not be as interesting looking. So we're going to make a second one and make it just a tiny bit shorter, okay? Because when that hangs off, it'll sort of drape down. So let's make another one, and we're going to make it half the size this time, okay? So this time what we're going to do is chain 8 this time, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Once again, work 3 half double crochets in that third chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, and work 3 half double crochets in that third chain from the hook. So 1, 2, and 3. And we're just going to do this all the way across. That will give it a little bit more interest than 2 of the exact same length, okay? So next chain, work 3 half double crochets, and so forth. So go ahead and work your 3 half double crochets in each chain across. Just working that very last stitch. And then we're going to once again cut the yarn, leaving a tail, because we'll use that to sew it up later, and fasten off. And now our second curlicue is ready to go, okay? So if we hold these up together once we sew them, they sort of just, they have a similar look, but they're just going to be different heights, just so it kind of looks a little bit more interesting, okay? So we can put these aside and we'll assemble our carrot next. Okay, so once our carrot is all set, then we want to let our bunny hold the carrot. And let's sit the bunny up just a little bit. So the bunny is holding the carrot, and then we made these 2 toppers. So what we need to do for these is we have 2 tails, but we only need 1 to sew in, okay? So take one of the tails and just run it through some of these stitches here. And once again, snip. I understand that we have lots of tails in this project, but it's all worth it at the end because it looks so cute. All right, now let's do the same thing. Remember, we made a longer curlicue and a shorter curlicue. So we're gonna just kind of layer them, if you will, okay? So I'm just running that last tail in here. And we'll give that one a snip as well. So now we have a tail per curlicue to sew it on, okay? So let's do the larger one first because we're going to kind of put that on the bottom. So thread your needle, and I kind of put the carrot in here on purpose first so that it'll kind of lay down the side a little bit nicer, okay? So what we're going to do is lay your curlicue however you want it to go on the carrot, and then you're just going to take your tapestry needle. I'm doing sort of a top view here, but you're going to kind of take your tapestry needle and just do a couple of well-placed stitches. Now this will be the bottom one, so just leave a loop, do a couple of stitches, and then, whoops, we should have left that on there. Leave that on there, don't do what I did. And then just kind of run it through to weave it in, okay? And give it a little snip. All right, make sure the crumbs are out of the way. Okay, so we have one curlicue for our carrot. You can see the top view here's our carrot. And then just to give it a little bit, see how it sort of arcs over? I was playing with this when I was creating this pattern, and I thought having another one would just kind of fill in the space a little bit. So place it how you want it to go first. I'm going to kind of do it that way. See how there's like one, and then there's like one in front of it. And this one's going to be in the front. So what we're going to do is fold that forward because that will sort of, you want to hide, whenever you sew things together, you want to hide the mechanics of what you're doing, if at all possible, okay? So we're just going to do a couple of well-placed stitches. And then that last one, leave a loop and bring, whoops, the ear's in the way. Bring the loop through. And then while it's on the needle right then and there, you can weave in that end, okay? So pull that snug, give it a snip, and you might need to floof up these curlicues a little bit. Remove any crumbs. Whenever you cut chenille yarn, there's always those crumbs. Okay, so this carrot now sort of just kind of cascades down our bunny's arm. It looks kind of cute, okay? So we'll make that go forward. We'll make that sort of lay like that, okay? So our bunny, if we look at him this way, is pretty much done. But I really want to kind of put something to finish his neck a little bit. I feel like the neck looks a little bit unfinished. So let's lay our bunny flat. We're going to grab, I found a piece of ribbon in my stash that's the same color as the carrot topper, which I think is pretty. And so let's lay our bunny down. And whenever you're tying ribbon, the trick is to not handle it too much because you don't want it to get crinkly, okay? If you need to steam it or iron it later, that's okay. But I'm going to do his little neck bow on the side because we have a lot going on this side. So we're just going to kind of put it off center and just tie a little ribbon. And it's okay if it's a little loopy at first because we're going to neaten it up a little bit, okay? So get your loops, tie them snug. And then the thing with bows, to make bows look beautiful, what you want to do is just do like a, I'm going to bend his ear out of the way so you can see, but we want to pull the loop this way, pull the loop that way, then tighten it. Then pull the loop a little bit more, pull the loop a little bit more, and tighten it, okay, until your bow is how you want it to look, okay? So the last thing we want to do is I want to kind of make, you can kind of twist these tails to sort of, you can also, if you make a bow and that tail's in your way, you can kind of flip it back like that, okay? But whenever you're tying a bow by hand like this, you just have to fiddle with it quite a bit in order to get it how you really want it to look. But I kind of like his bow off-centered like that. Okay, now you want to get yourself a pair of sharp scissors and figure out how long you want your bow to be. And I like to cut bows at an angle. Actually, I'm going to do a little bit more of an angle than that. And just get everything nice and positioned. And our bunny has this nice little Easter bow tie on. And we're going to cut this one at an angle as well. Just looks a little bit more finished when your bunny has a bow like that, okay? So I think you want to go around and kind of double check Get everything shaped up, get those ears shaped up, get your carrot positioned how you want it to be. And I think our bunny is complete. Just check for any loose ends, any tails that need to be woven in. But our bunny is ready to go into a basket or sit on a shelf. I have a perfect shelf that I'm going to sit my bunny on and let his little legs dangle down. So that is how you crochet the Carrot Hugs bunny. I hope you enjoyed this pattern. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.